welcome. Hi, I'm Nancy Reed. I'm your worship associate for today. And we welcome you, whether this is your first visit or your 100th visit. We're so glad that you're here. Our church is a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we're glad that you're here. I'm skipping around here. I'll catch up with my script soon. Welcome to the people who are in the room, and welcome to the people who are watching from home. We do have a couple of requests. Please wear a mask if you're here. RE and child care will be provided this morning in about 15 minutes by Pat Mills and Kaya Mills. And we'll be collecting the cards for joys and sorrows after our first hymn. Those are the cards that are next to you in the chair if you have any particular joy or sorrow that you would like to share today. Also, you can join us for a worship on our worship Zoom link on Wednesdays from 12 to 12:30 in Lent for a meditation series focused on discernment through creativity. Are there any other announcements for the church today?
Okay, today completes our second week of our pledge drive, during which we added about $18,000. That puts us at $52,000 on our way to a goal of $76,000. It might look like there are a lot of fish on this pledge-o-meter, but there's a whole school waiting to take their place, so don't be shy. We'd like to complete the pledge drive by next Sunday, April 2nd. So if you haven't had a chance to submit your pledge, you can do so on our UU Church of Canandaigua website by clicking on Give and then going to the pledge form at the bottom of the page, by emailing me at patmelschurch@frontier.com, by filling out a paper pledge form right here in our sanctuary and dropping it in the bright green box, or by sending your pledge amount by mail to UUCC 3024 Cooley Road. Or this morning, I actually had a text come in with a wonderful pledge, which was great news, and had to add a couple more fish. So any way you want to contact me, feel free. Thank you very much.
Are there any other announcements? I thought I would just mention that in the paper a couple of weeks ago, we were told that we're going to get a regular stoplight out here at the corner of Cooley Road and 5 and 20. And if you're like me, you'll be very grateful for that. It's a horrible intersection. So good news for the future. So we will now enter a space of worship. Bill Mills, thank you.
We have a couple of guests.
Oh, we do have a couple of guests. I am sorry. And we're so glad that you're here. We have two guests from our service partner this month. A quarter of all of our gifts that we give on Sundays are shared with a service partner that we choose. And for this muddy season of about 6 weeks long, we picked the Called to Care organization. And Millie Huff and Linda Wirtz are here. And I think it's Millie that's going to come talk to us a little bit, tell you what they are doing. You want to come on up?
Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting us to come and share our experience in welcoming refugee families. My name is not Millie, it's Meg, but that's okay. That's all right. I joined Call to Care Canandaigua last June, shortly after Linda Wirtz here put out the call seeking people who wanted to work with refugee families. As soon as I attended my very first committee meeting and encountered others who wanted to do good in the world, I knew that I had found my people. Everyone I have met is hardworking and dedicated to helping refugees. I have always believed that we live our faith by doing. Active, tangible expressions of love, justice, and peace are what make a difference in the world. At an early age, my mother taught me that actions speak louder than words. And we have all heard the expression, watch what they do, not what they say. The work that Call to Care Canandaigua is doing is making a huge difference for the families we are helping. Each of our members has a role to play. We all bring our best selves to our resettlement work. Call to Care Canandaigua is organized into various committees. We have the Welcoming Committee and one for documents, education, employment, health, housing, transportation, community orientation, and fundraising. I can sense how a higher power helps us in our work by sending us people with skills and community contacts in each of these areas. Our first two families are from Ukraine. What are the odds that I would find out that there's a woman living in the hamlet of Ionia who is fluent in Ukrainian and familiar with Ukrainian culture? She is very involved with our Ukrainian families and has become not only an interpreter, but a very good friend. Our newest family is a young married couple from Haiti. The husband speaks English, but the wife does not. Would you believe that Linda found a woman in Newark, New York, who speaks Haitian Creole? She will also be an interpreter and a friend. Surely these things are not a coincidence. To be called a refugee is a badge of courage, strength, and victory. Meeting refugees and helping them to resettle here in the United States in their new lives brings all of us great joy. We see the immigrant mentality to work hard, be brave, and never give up on their pursuit of the American dream. It sparks positive energy in all of us. Our hope is that the community will see the worth and dignity of all refugees. May we embrace them with acceptance and love. May we be empowered through word, deed, and political action to bring justice and peace to those who have been the victims of war and persecution. So please, ask yourselves today, what is love calling you to do? Our spiritual practice calls on us to side with love. We invite you to learn more about Call to Care Canandaigua and decide to put your talents to work in helping us by joining in the effort. I would like to end with a short prayer. May we be those who draw together the threads of peace found in the beauty of the earth that surrounds us and found in common and simple acts of kindness and compassion that fill the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will enter into the space of worship. Please join me in our chalice lighting words as I light this flame. Usually have kids up here to do this, and they do a better job. It's not going to work today. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. Happy spring. Sun is shining. I'm Reverend Kelly Spar, a community minister affiliated with First Universalist Church of Rochester and former longtime member of First Unitarian Church of Rochester. Such a delight to be invited to be here with you today. I preached here last year on Zoom, but I haven't been in this building in probably a decade. I'm a per diem chaplain at Strong Memorial Hospital, and I also serve as an outpatient neuropalliative chaplain for the neurology department at URMC. I also work for Hillside Children's Center as part of their nursing team, supporting healthcare access for foster children. I serve on the Professional Advisory Board for Crossroads of Caring, a community-based clinical pastoral education program, and I consult with the Spiritual Care Association, assisting with the board certification process for healthcare chaplains. I also serve on the Parent Advisory Board for the Golisano Children's Hospital Pediatric Behavioral Clinic and the Policy Subcommittee of Rochester City School District. I'm tired. All that aside, in my decade plus as a clinical chaplain, I feel that I have moved further and further away from the study and discussion of theology and more towards a practice of presence, curiosity, and a deeper understanding of the power and powerlessness of our own bodies, health, and our healthcare systems. In my training as a clinical healthcare chaplain, I developed a mantra of sorts to center and ground me in between patients. Over the years, it has become part of my internal conversation whenever I am making a transition or I need to ground myself. This mantra was the closing words when I was ordained, and I open our service with these words today. May our minds be open to the presence of the divine. May our bodies be open to the presence of the divine. May our spirits be open to the presence of the divine. And may our attention and intention be open to the presence of the divine. Please join me for our opening hymn, number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
Holy place, my heart is in a holy place.
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows by writing them down on the card you found on your chair and placing them in the basket when it comes by you, or typing them in the chat box if you're home watching on Zoom. Please know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you. Thank you.
Our opening hymn mentions the God of our hearts, which is something I include in my prayers with patience often. And this is a story of all ages today about coming together in an understanding, a broad understanding of what God is. This is Old Turtle. I'm sorry we don't have the illustrations. They're very beautiful, but I'm happy to send this to the back for the children to page through when I'm done reading it so they can see the illustrations. Once, long, long ago, yet somehow not so very long, when all the animals and rocks and winds and waters and trees and birds and fish and all the beings of the world could speak and understand one another, there began an argument. We don't know anything about that in UU congregations, do we? It began softly at first, quiet as the first breeze that whispered, "He is a wind who is never still," quiet as the stone that answered, "He is a great rock that never moves," gentle as the mountain that rumbled, "God is a snowy peak high above the clouds," and the fish in the ocean that answered, "God is a swimmer in the dark blue depths of the sea." "No," said the star, "God is a twinkling and a shining far, far away." "No," replied the ant, "God is a sound and a smell and a feeling who is very, very close." "God," insisted the antelope, "is a runner, swift and free, who loves to leap and race with the wind." "She is a great tree," murmured the willow, "a part of the world, always growing and always giving." "You are wrong," argued the island. "God is separate and apart." "God is like the shining sun, far above all things," added the blue sky. "No, he is a river who flows through the very heart of things," thundered the waterfall. "She is a hunter," roared the lion. "God is gentle," chirped the robin. "He is powerful," growled the bear, and the argument grew louder and louder and louder. "Stop!" A new voice spoke. It rumbled loudly like thunder, and it whispered softly like butterfly sneezes. The voice seemed to come from, why it seemed to come from, Old Turtle. Old Turtle hardly ever said anything and certainly never argued about God. But now Old Turtle began to speak. "God is indeed deep," she said to the fish in the sea, "and much higher than high," she told the mountains. "He is swift and free as the wind and still and solid as a great rock," she said to the breezes and stones. "She is the life of the world," Turtle said to the willow, always close by, yet beyond the furthest twinkling light, she told the ant and the star. God is gentle and powerful, above all things and within all things. God is all that we dream of and all that we seek, said Old Turtle, and all that we come from and all that we can find. God is. Old Turtle had never said so much before. All the beings of the world were surprised and became very quiet. But Old Turtle had one more thing left to say. There will soon be a new family of beings in the world, she said, and they will be strange and wonderful. They will be reminders of all that God is. They will come in many colors and shapes, with different faces and different ways of speaking. Their thoughts will soar to the stars, but their feet will walk the earth. They will possess many powers. They will be strong yet tender, a message of love from God to the earth, and a prayer from the earth back to God. And the people came. So many people. But the people forgot. They forgot that they were a message of love and a prayer from the earth, and they began to argue about who knew God and who did not, and where God was and was not, and whether God was and was not. And often the people misused their powers and hurt one another, and they hurt the earth until finally even the forests began to die, and the rivers and the oceans and the plants and the animals and the earth itself, because the people could not remember who they were or where God was. Until one day there came a voice like the growling of thunder, but as soft as butterfly sneezes. Please stop. The voice seemed to come from the mountain who rumbled, sometimes I see God swimming in the dark blue depths of the sea. And from the ocean who sighed, he is often among the snow-capped peaks reflecting the sun. From the stone who said, I sometimes feel her breath as she blows by. And from the breeze who whispered, I feel his still presence as I dance among the rocks. And the star declared, God is very close. And the island added, his love touches everything. And after a long, lonesome, and scary time, the people listened and began to hear and to see God in one another and in the beauty of all the earth. And Old Turtle smiled, and so did God.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. And each week we would like to spotlight a group or a committee and thank them for their gift of time. And we want to spotlight the Buildings and Grounds Committee today and say thank you so much for all the work you do to keep our building going. You can see me or Kevin House if you're interested in helping out with some of the nuts and bolts of just keeping the church going. And as you heard, 1/4 of our plate collection is going to Call to Care, and you heard a little bit about that from Meg this morning. And Meg and Linda will be around after the service too, and said they'd love to hear any questions you have about what they're doing. We now gratefully accept the offering. We have three joys to share today. The Brennan family says they're so happy to be joining us in person for the first time. Welcome to the Brennan family. Carolyn Wood says sending happy birthday wishes to her sister Valerie, who turns 26 today. And Kaya Mel says that she got her 2022 Conqueror's Challenge medal. Yay, Kaya. Woo! We'll have to find out more about what that is. I'm sure there are probably some heavy hearts out there today too, but whatever joys and sorrows are in your hearts, I will drop a pebble in the water representing how your feelings ripple out, and we share them. And we will say, we are with you. We are with you. And now, right on cue there, if there are any children that would like to go downstairs for children time downstairs, Sunday school, now's the time to go.
Please join with me in a spirit of meditation and prayer. For those who pray and those who don't, for those who believe there is some ultimate power that listens and can affect the world, and for those who believe that it is only through the power of love of our own hearts that we make a difference. We pray to ourselves, to each other, to God, Goddess, Spirit, the great mystery of the universe that is beyond our understanding as well as our naming. Within each of our hearts is a yearning for something better for ourselves, for each other, for the world. That is our prayer. Beyond the personal prayers of our hearts, we share the collective prayers of humanity, prayers for love and justice, mercy and solace, respect, compassion, and peace. Universal prayers manifest in the values we cherish. Prayer is the seed, the guide, the vision, the direction. But our hands must work to build a better world, and our feet must walk the paths that lead to a universal, loving, respectful human community. Let us pray, and then let us begin the work once again. May it be so, and amen. Please join me in a moment of shared silence. So last Sunday, I worked at the hospital for a 10-hour shift, which is shorter than my usual 16-hour shift. Started my day with a visit to one of the adult inpatient psychiatry units, where a patient needed to talk about an unattended pregnancy and her experience of rejection of her and the baby by the father. From there, I was urgently called to pray at the bedside of a family matriarch who was dying. There were more than 10 family members present, and I stood with them in their tears and grief, naming the power and goodness of the woman in that bed, praying for comfort, strength, wisdom, and for the staff to be blessed with all of the skill and compassion they needed to herald her through her last earthly journey. Praying with them through smiles and tears was a privilege. From there, I was paged by the neurology floor to call a priest to anoint 2 patients who were actively dying. And after that, I spent an hour with a very young adult woman who was less than a day after surgery. She had struggled with chronic illness her whole life and has a terribly complicated family dynamic filled with physical and sexual abuse, as well as medical trauma from her various surgeries and long periods in the hospital. She hated that she might be seen as a problem patient for self-advocating during a long and painful night. She is the sweetest woman who cares deeply for others and is attending college to work in social services. She felt disempowered and invalidated by her nurse, who early in the morning told her she needed to grow up and experience some tough love and to stop being so emotional. I spent a lot of time normalizing her feelings, honoring her journey, and just sitting quietly with her while she wept in frustration for almost an hour. Then I did some quiet behind-the-scenes advocacy with a consult to palliative pain management. After that, I ran downstairs and I grabbed a quick sandwich and I wolfed it down, as we do in the hospital. I don't know if anybody works in the hospital, but you gotta eat when you can. Then I headed off to see a chronic cardiac patient who had come to the emergency department with an infection. I knew her from past admissions, and although I was sorry to see that she was back in the hospital, I was grateful that she was still on this earthly plane after so many cardiac problems. And I was so grateful to pray with her, as she is a deeply faithful woman who has amazing conversations with God that are awe-inspiring to me. At the same time, I know she belongs to a church and holds beliefs that don't recognize my sexuality or my gender on multiple levels. And yet the love that we have experienced with each other in the face of death and in the intersection of faith and science is profound. The way she prays moves my spirit. She talks to God with so much love and faith and passion that it literally gave me chills. It reminded me of a prayer about prayer that, in my mind, helps me to make sense of all of these prayers that I share with patients and families, and holds me to remember the inherent worth and dignity of each person. You ask me how to pray to someone who is not. All I know is that prayer constructs a velvet bridge, and walking it, we are aloft as on a springboard, above landscapes the color of ripe gold, transformed by a magic stopping of the sun. That bridge leads to the shore of reversal where everything is just the opposite, and the word is unveils a meaning we hardly envisioned. Notice, I say we. There, everyone separately feels compassion for the others entangled in the flesh, and knows that if there is no other shore, we will walk that aerial bridge all the same. When I got back to the office at noon, yes, this was just the first 3 hours of my shift, to chart, I was called to pull out Malcolm Boyd's book of prayers. It's called, Are You Running With Me, Jesus? This book is a collection of conversations with Jesus by a very liberal Episcopal priest from the 1960s. The one that I found myself to reread felt like an empathetic connection to the young woman I spent so much time with earlier. Boyd prays, I'm crying and shouting inside tonight, Jesus, and I'm feeling completely alone. All the roots I thought I had are gone. Everything in my life is in an upheaval. This moment is all that matters. The present moment is of supreme importance. I know this, yet in the present I feel dead. I want to anchor myself in the past and shed tears of self-pity. When I look ahead, I can only see futility, pain, and death. But you call me tonight to love and responsibility. You have a job for me to do. I feel your presence strongly in this awful moment, and I thank you. Help me on to my feet. Help me to get up. These frank conversations that Boyd shares do not align with my own relationship with the divine, but his intention of asking for help, his humility, and his knowledge that the present is the most important thing, even when the present is a terrible place to be, are articulate reminders of what it is that I do as a healthcare chaplain. Be present. Help patients return to the present. Avoid assumptions and predictions. Don't get wrapped up in the past. Be present. Enter into the pain and joy of the right now. Ask for help. Pray, yell, advocate, and most of all, listen. I feel like so much of the ministry I do outside the walls of a church is as a witness. I can myself do nothing but be in the moment of the crisis. Sometimes there is nothing to say and nothing expected of me except to offer, quite literally, as stated in our flow sheets, silent prayer and presence. When I get called, as I do most shifts, to the trauma critical care bay, it is as part of a well-oiled machine. I know where to stand, I know who to ask questions of, and I spend most of my time listening. I listen to the first responders, I listen to the social workers, I listen to the police who often accompany trauma calls. I listen to the doctors, the nurses, the radiologists. I hold that moment in both hands with my spirit, with my heart, with silent prayer until the moment has passed. Sometimes I am filled with righteous, holy anger, either at the situation itself or at the assumptions, lack of compassion, and blatant racism of police and providers. Other times I am filled with gratitude and holy love when I witness the beauty of that well-oiled machine and how it saves lives. The competency and dedication with which providers work and how they grieve when they fail. Sometimes, especially with pediatric cases, I have the opportunity to call and advocate for parents and families to be treated with dignity and compassion and respect. And on the best days, I can just witness that happening naturally, which is a relief. After my cardiac patient in the emergency department, I did end up getting called to the trauma bay, and I watched the staff literally reach inside a patient's chest and use their own hands to make his heart beat to try to save him. It was awe-inspiring, terrifying, beautiful, and ultimately unsuccessful. I cannot tell you how many deaths I have witnessed, how many moments of silence I've held. I cannot tell you how many hands I've held, how many gloves, masks, and gowns I have worn and disposed of. I cannot tell you how many prayers I have said, how many babies I have baptized, how many parents and children I have comforted, and how many sweet memories have been shared with me, a stranger, welcomed into the love and connection of families unknown to me. They are my congregation. And in between each one, I remind myself to be present to the divine. What that means for me and what that means for my patients. It is my ministry to be present to them and their journey. It is not my ministry to convince them of anything, or to argue about their political beliefs, or to bring them to Jesus against their will because their spouse is worried they won't be together in heaven. In our earlier prayer, the author said, notice, I say we. There, everyone separately feels compassion for others entangled in the flesh, and knows that if there is no other shore, we will walk that aerial bridge all the same. The prayers I construct with my patient allows us to walk together on that aerial bridge in times of pain and sorrow, joy and hope. The other piece of my ministry is to be part of a team. It is a great joy for me to work in the outpatient neuropalliative clinic at the University of Rochester. At the hospital, I am part of a team, but it is ever-changing, ever-moving, a fleeting collection of providers to come together for an acute situation. In my palliative care work, I have a different opportunity for presence. I have patients I see regularly, and I support caregivers and families as well. I am part of a different, well-oiled machine there. It is the same team every week. We chat, we send emails, we see each other regularly, and at the heart of it, we believe in patient-centered care and caring for the whole family. Being present to chronically ill patients in chaplaincy is a very different but eerily similar experience to the experience of being at the bedside of a murder victim or sitting on the floor cradling a mother and father who have lost their infant. The emotions that are present are the same, but I have a chance to be present to them and their challenges in a different, longer-term, attentive and focused way. Imagine having a chronic illness, as surely some in this room do, as I do. The powerlessness of not knowing what will come next. The fear, the joy of getting to be intentionally spending more time with family and doing things one loves. Or the isolation and need for assistance from aides and professionals. The grief of losing pieces of oneself over and over again. Or watching a loved one lose themselves in pieces. Getting older and feeling like one's grown children are infantilizing you and treating you like a child yourself. Fear of losing independence. The reality of not being able to drive anymore. Besides being present in the moment with these patients and entering into a journey with them for an hour at a time, it has become so important to me to continue to educate providers about what I see when I stand as a witness. Clinicians, doctors, nurses, social workers, even chaplains are given an authority they may not have even asked for. Just as congregants grant authority to their minister and trust their leadership in so many ways, patients are giving themselves over to powerlessness in the healthcare machine. Patients are surrounded by people who claim to be experts about a body they have lived in their whole life. Whether in the hospital or in the doctor's office, as patients, we are stripped of our clothes. We are put into a gown that takes away our unique identity and creates a feeling of vulnerability that those little tiny ties in the back cannot help with, right? I mean, everything's just hanging out. We are put into beds or on tables where a doctor or a nurse stands over us, does things to us, sometimes without asking, and tells us what we should be doing, often without asking what our values are around our quality of life, or how we make our healthcare decisions. Do we discuss it with our family? Are we fiercely independent? Do we talk to our priest or our rabbi? Are there interventions that go against our personal beliefs? Information is handed down to us from on high like medical gospel. And it's complicated, right? Patients may hold religious beliefs that are not aligned with my medical knowledge, or make choices about their care that I know may be detrimental. But I believe in informed choice. I believe in meeting people where they are at and centering their experience in what care they want and need. This philosophy of care is not shared by all providers, but it is getting better. I believe that having a chaplain at the table at family meetings to ask these questions and to be a witness to difficult conversations can be extremely helpful. Having a chaplain on the trauma response team, again, often as a witness, can reduce those racist and stereotyping comments or offer opportunities for education and compassionate conversation. Sometimes, having a minister in the room just reminds people to act better. Chaplains remind providers that we are a team, and that jaded though we might become, it is a human being in front of us, worthy of dignity and fair treatment. Pastoral care is not just for patients. It is a system-wide care that is often unnoticed or unappreciated. But I believe that I and my colleagues make a difference in every interaction, with our presence and our attention to the present moment. Caring for staff and for the system is just as important as caring for patients. It's like the baby in the river metaphor, the parable that tells the tale of two people walking by a river when they notice babies floating down the river. One starts grabbing the babies out of the river while the other runs upstream. The first asks, "Where are you going? We have to save these babies." And the other replies, "I'm gonna go see who's throwing babies in the river." Chaplains are working together at both ends of the river to try to fix a system in the moment and for the long term. Chaplains pray and visit, but we are also agents of change. I am so proud to be a Unitarian Universalist minister who has been called to the ministry of chaplaincy. I am proud to live into our values and principles in the work that I do, to fight the systemic inequities, and to have a foundation of dignity and respect that I try to bring to every interaction, even or maybe especially when I'm feeling a holy anger about a situation. Now, I will say that UUs are not often very open to receiving chaplain visits. Religious trauma is real, people. UUs often require a quick, "Hey, I'm a UU too, and I'm not here to sell you anything," before I get kicked back out the door of the hospital room. I would encourage you to give us a chance, whether UU or not. My clinically trained colleagues and professionals who will care for your spiritual and emotional needs in an open-minded and present manner. Okay, I promised that being a chaplain was not to convince you of anything, so I'm done trying to convince you. But power is real, and healthcare is a huge system full of successes and failures of science and power. The theology and faith that I take with me into the world as a UU minister are, I believe, blessings upon the systems I serve, just as you all take those beliefs and blessings into every moment you are present to in your own daily ministries. Presence, listening, compassion, advocacy. May we all grow these skills and share them with the world. May it be so, and amen. I sometimes think the stars are God's tears. Even God's sorrow creates sources of great illumination, joy, and beauty through these celestial bodies. At our very best, we human beings are microcosms, containing within us sparks of divinity. Sometimes I think my own heart, shattered by sorrows, is like a cascade of diamonds. Each piece is valuable and radiant, a source of joy and illumination to beings known and unknown to me, as the stars are a source of strength and radiance to me, although I am unknown to them. May we be open to the presence of the divine. May it be so, and amen. Please join us for our closing hymn, number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
Will you please join me in our extinguishing the chalice words? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.